I actually have to live under this guy, you know, and like read about all the stories that happen all the time. And
Do you
look,
ever read the
I
other
just want to
side,
kind
though?
of move on from
Can
this
you agree that
topic.
he's done anything good, or no?
Um, I think
You just hate
sure
him.
there's some things. I mean, you'd have to
You
give
don't
me.
think maybe your country voted him in for a reason? He didn't have the full popular vote, but half your country does like him. Does that make them all idiots? I'm
Well,
curious about that.
I wouldn't say half. If you
No,
look at his
a lot of
if you
people
look at
agree
his
with him.
approval
Why?
rating, his approval rating has not been positive in a long time. Okay,
He's
he's
holding
not
like
popular.
40, what, 43,
Got
48%. It hasn't shifted that much.
that's not good. That's not good. So he's not very
Listen,
popular. He didn't get more votes. Yes, there is a
I'm not a Trump supporter. Like, you're not
there's a
going to have to sell
section of
me on this.
people who. Oh, let me just answer your question. Let me just answer your question, okay?
Fair enough.
So there's a section of people who feel very passionately about him, right? But
Yep.
the majority of the country is not really in favor of him. And a lot
Fair
of his
enough.
policies, they have not been in favor of, like the tax cuts. People don't like it. The immigration policy, people feel really bad about it. And yeah, there's just a lot of things that people don't like about him. Like, so you know, to me, there are some good things about some of the tax plans that he's had. I think some of the things make sense. I think again, it's too shifted towards people that make a lot of money, the top 10, 1,
Yeah.
5%.
Is that a Trump
I
thing
think
or an American
that's a problem I
government
have.
thing? I feel like the American
It's a
government has been
Republican
elitist
thing.
always.
It's a Republican thing,
You don't
I'd
think
say.
Democrats are elitist at all? There's no money, there's no bad intention in there at all?
Sure, I mean, there are definitely some, but I think we're getting off topic. So
Oh,
yeah, just
yeah,
to end
yeah,
this,
for sure.
I think that there are some people who feel when they see policies like this, they see an erosion of their rights. I do not think they are incorrect in seeing that. Again,
Okay,
this guy's been
that's fair.
extremely anti-trans, extremely, because it's the easiest part of the LGBT community to attack. So I mean, he's done lots of things with bathroom policy. He's done a lot of things with banning them, trying to ban them from the military. Just a lot of policies that harm them, and they see that as an attack on them. And I think they're correct. They're not incorrect. They are correct, and they
Fair
should be
enough.
worried. They should push back. They should try to oppose him because he is harming them. He is harming them, and he wants to do harm to them. Because if we didn't oppose him, he would do worse. So that's just the
I
way
don't
I
know
see
that
it.
he really cares about them either way, but he might. I don't know that he's actively
But
wanting to destroy their lives. I don't think he cares
when
personally.
you're doing these things, well, first off, like he tweeted out the
He
transgender ban
probably did it for
policy
an
himself.
economic reason, which might be good or bad. I don't think he did it for an evil. I don't think he's like evil
But
genius. I think he's just
again,
economically motivated
like
and greedy as
the
shit.
the point you're making is, oh well, he doesn't care, but he's hurting you. Like, is that better? I don't think
No,
so.
actually, I don't agree with
I
you.
don't really
So
think
I'm
so.
not actually going to make that point because I don't think we're going to find a middle ground on this. Because I come from a place which is very different than you. You live in, just understand this for a second. When you look at like whether it's like the Midwest of the states, so say Kansas, I don't know, Colorado, North and South Dakota. No one ever thinks about North and South Dakota except the Canadians. These are the types of this is more the perception I'm coming from. So like you're talking to me from, you said the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I'm coming from a very rural, very agricultural area. Yeah, it's a little more conservative, fair enough, but there's a bit of everything here. It's very different when we look at things that we're willing to fight about. You have to survive here. Put it that way. Like some people, you can't even like go out in the middle of the winter and not freeze to death if you don't have proper gear on. This is the kind of like, it's not like we can just sit around and mess around with little things like that. And people do. People make a big deal out of stuff here too. But I think when you're looking at like trans rights, when you look at something like what happened with you mentioned the bathrooms and this bakery issue. Those are two issues that people up here laugh about because we don't see why this is such a huge deal for a very small portion of the population. Now, for you guys, it's a huge deal. For us, not a huge deal. So for the rest of America, in certain pockets, it's not the same. Like you guys, you're looking at rights in a very beautiful humanistic way. I love the way that Californians and libs think when it comes to helping people who are marginalized, because I was disabled. I understand, so I get it, and I'm all for it. But what I don't like is when people take these little things that end up being not that big a deal and they kind of turn it into a huge human rights issue. That, to me, people are creating more problems. I feel like most gay people in Canada, anyways, I'm not in the States, so I can't speak completely to this situation of what they're like, if they're discriminated against, rather, if they have, I think for the most part, we're all free to be who we want to be in Western society. So, I mean, I know that's certainly true. Now, as far as little situations like this, they're going to come up. You're going to have bigots, you're going to have racists, you're going to have people who just don't agree or won't serve this, agenda or whatever it is. But that doesn't mean that nobody understands trans rights and we don't care and we're not willing to put ourselves in their shoes. That's absolutely untrue. I think there's other motivations behind these policies that go beyond hateful, I hate trans. Like, I think there's so much more to it. And I think there's a big voice that you're missing, which is not just the conservative voice, but like rural voice, people that go day to day and never actually meet a trans person. Like there's whole populations where that's not a big thing, whereas in California, it's a huge thing. So like we're talking different world. So if we disagree, I suspect it's only from a whole different like growing up lifestyle, right? Like we've grown up in very different environments. But I really respect your opinion. Like I really respect.
A lot of people who never interact with gay people or trans people, they probably see things differently. Okay,
now,
so let's.
No, I definitely I have interacted with. I'm not saying I'm sheltered, but
I feel like we've kind of meandered here for a bit. Let's move to the next topic. So let's talk about Jordan Peterson. And can you talk about like how you became aware of him and how, well, like how what your feelings are about him and what you like about him?
How did I become aware of him? I can't remember if I first saw a video of his lectures or if I first read. I think I first read an article about the Bill C-16 issue, which I think was maybe where I first heard him speak. I think he was speaking at the to the Senate in Ontario. So I first heard him speak, and first I was just impressed with his vernacular, so to speak, the way he spoke, the way that he expressed himself. So I looked into a couple more of his videos, read a few articles, and that's where I got into his lecture series and whatnot. So I did eventually buy the book, although I haven't read it because I've mostly just done video watching. I'm going to see him on the 15th in Saskatoon. So yeah, so I got into his lectures sort of accidentally. It was a time in my life where I was coming out of surgery. I wasn't healing. I was dealing with a lot of grief, a lot of PTSD. I was a victim. I was poor. I was exhausted. I was fed up, and I didn't want to live anymore. And I found Jordan Peterson, and I didn't mean to. And he somehow brought back a fire in me that I can't explain. So he's been very positive for me, and I defend him pretty stoutly. Yeah, for sure.
That's good. So it's funny that we keep talking about these kind of things. They keep happening. So C-16 was like a very big deal. Do you think that he was totally right in his stance opposing it?
I do. And I don't think it's because it has anything. No, the thing with Jordan Peterson is there's a lot of hit pieces out on him, and he has been considered transphobic.
Well, can I just ask you this real quick? So you think that he was factually correct in what he said about Bill C-16?
I think his concerns about compelled speech in Canada and it being a slippery slope are very, very real. Yes.
Okay.
I think concerns about compelled speech. No, he has said okay, we have to remember he's a clinical psychologist. He's been a clinical psychologist for 20 years. He's probably known and spoke with and maybe even helped more trans people than any of us can, pretending that we're being activists for them. So we got to start there because I've seen a lot, and I promise.
I don't think that has much to do with his stance on C-16. I don't think that gives
but you're going to get into Bill C-16 and trans. So I'm just going to start by saying this wasn't about trans people. This was about compelled speech. 1000%. He has said it a million times.
Okay.
Speech, not period. He's worried about social.
Well, yeah, I don't think that he's worried about. He's like an anti-trans bigot, but I do think that it's very convenient that there's a group of people who is very likely to be opposed to these type of changes in rights, and they clung to him. They clung to him, and they may not have the same sort of reasons why they oppose it as he does. He's doing it from like a sort of.
I can't speak for his fans. I have no idea what people have used his words to twist.
I mean, I can't either, to be honest, but it's just sort of what I've seen. But yeah, you can continue if you want.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely know that that's been the accusation. I've read a lot of hit pieces on him. I read almost all of them. Sometimes just to evaluate my own position. Sometimes I listen to him to make sure I'm not the brainwashed. How did his friend put it? There was an article out. His friend said, "Is Jordan Peterson dangerous?" And the CBC put it out. It was a whole big thing. I wrote an article rebutting it actually and sent it to the National Post, but it's not exactly the smallest newspaper to try to get published in. So is Jordan Peterson dangerous is the question. And he said that he has this tribe of young male acolytes, so I think was the word that he used, following him, brainwashed, right? And I find that kind of insulting. I get it. I'm sure there's lots of young people that are maybe taking his words the wrong way, but there's not that many things. He says some pretty stupid things in the sense of maybe he doesn't think of how the media is going to obviously twist it, like the concept of enforced monogamy, which I've heard explained and makes total sense in context. If you don't give context.
Oh, you think it makes sense? Okay, that'll be fun to talk about.
It's not a crazy idea. What he actually says is he explained it in 3 minutes when someone asked him to explain it. And he said, "I can't believe the media took it out of context." Well, I can, because he didn't provide context. So that's fair. I mean, but he didn't mean anything weird like the hit pieces put it out personally. Not at all. Not
okay, so let's talk a bit about the Bill C-16. So has anyone been arrested or fined because
It's a
they
brand new bill.
didn't
It's brand new. It's
use.
not. There's been no way to
So,
tell
like,
yet
but
because it's
how
too
long
new.
has it
That's why
been?
he's opposing it.
How long has it been around? Like, is it
Well,
actually
they
in
were just
place?
discussing it. Like, I don't even live in Ontario, so this is honestly, this isn't something I even know when it started. He was discussing it with the Senate. Like, this is not an old thing. This is a new thing. Like,
Okay,
it was recently passed, like within the past year, I'm sure, or two, not longer than that. It has
but
not been an old
is it
bill at
like
all.
actually law now?
It's under the Human Rights Council. Yes, it's law.
So it's law now. So have you heard of someone being brought to the Human Rights Council for
Not
misgendering
yet,
someone
but it's brand new,
accidentally?
man. It's brand
Okay,
new. Now,
so
I
but
know this
basically
is the
you're
argument
saying
against
no,
him.
right? You're saying no.
No,
Okay. So
no, that doesn't make him wrong, though.
well, no,
You
I'm
said
not
something
saying
about a
he's
slippery
wrong,
slope
but
earlier and our right? Our rights being disintegrated. You said that earlier. This to me is exactly what you meant with the gay cake issue. To me, what he's saying is this
what
isn't the end of the world. I know I'm not going to go to jail, but this is a slippery slope if you
well
start saying what is offensive and what is not and what is considered hate speech.
he did say if they find me, I will not pay it, and they will have to take me to jail. He did say that.
He did say that. Yep.
That was his stance. So let's just talk about it on a
So,
philosophical level.
yeah.
So do you think that someone who is transgender who works at a company, do you think that their boss should be allowed to misgender them?
No, and I don't think it. I mean, I don't think someone should ethically be misgendering or mistreating anybody. I mean, I'm
Well,
the kind
okay.
of person
But
that
what
if
about
someone
legally?
asked me to speak to them a certain way, I would speak to them a certain way.
What
He
about
has also
legally?
said that if a student asked him in earnesty to speak to him,
Okay.
he would.
But again, what
So,
about legally? Should that
no,
be illegal? So you think it should not be
I don't
illegal?
believe that should be illegal. No, I think because
Okay.
now because this issue in itself, you could say yes, maybe it should because it's hurtful and it's unnecessary. So it's easy for me because my first instinct when you asked this question, my first instinct was, why is he fighting this so hard? This seems ridiculous. Just say the damn pronoun. Who cares? That was my first instinct. I thought of that probably the first 2 months I watched him because I wasn't understanding why this man was so fervently fighting something that seemed so, again, so benign. Who cares? What's the big deal? I didn't see how this was a big deal. Now, coming to have understood him on a bit of a deeper level when watching multiple lectures, when, reading articles or reading things about him, reading his stuff, reading his words, hearing his words, I certainly see that his concerns are not nearly they're not that shallow, right? Like he's concerned about the tendency of limitation of free speech. So what happens so say in this case, this is offensive, fine. But the concern is who is going to be the governing body to decide what is hate speech and what isn't? Who gets to decide what's offensive? Who gets to decide when facts or when feelings are hurt? And that, this is the tough one. This
Sure,
is
but
where
hold on. We're
he's
getting
concerned about
a little bit away from the question. We're getting
no,
a
we're not
little
because
bit.
this.
Yes,
No, we're not
yes,
though.
we are.
We're not because
Because
this is his.
hold on, but these
He has
things
said
happen. You got
defended.
it.
This is what he's
We
saying.
have to come to this. We have to come to the point of what the whole reason this thing exists is. If I'm trans and I work at a company and it's hostile and they deliberately misgender me, that's a problem. That is a problem.
Fair enough.
So the question is,
Yep.
should we? So I think, look, we can disagree. That's fine. But yes, I think that should be illegal, and that the person who's being misgendered should have the right to get legal recourse, and that they should fall under a protected class, just like race, just like religion, just like other things like that, minorities. And that's basically what C16 was. So that's, to me, like, I don't think it's an affront on free speech so much as it is protecting people's rights to not
No one
be
does. That's the thing.
infringed upon.
Just as I don't see the concern with the issue with the cake that you said as an indicator of anything more dark and scary. You don't think that this is either. I disagree. We don't have a First Amendment in Canada. You have to remember, we don't have a First Amendment. We don't have a constitutionally protected freedom of speech. And I've never in my life understood how important that is to the last couple of years. And it is important. And I do think it's a slippery slope. I do know what you're saying. I agree with you.
We
I
have
actually
similar
agree
laws
with
in the
you.
United States. You understand that, right?
Where's the line go then?
Do you understand that,
Pardon?
right? We have similar laws in the United States. It's not a free speech thing. It's a human rights.
No, you have. I know you're not. You still have free speech, though. You can still say something offensive and not get legally
but that's not what we're
reprimanded for,
talking
because
about.
offensive is very subjective. Yes.
You got to be very.
No, but this is what he's concerned
That's
about.
not what we're talking
This is what
about.
the point is. No, but
I
that's
don't
what
think-
he's talking about.
Okay, but
He's
then,
argued this a million times.
then I think
I'm not arguing my position. I'm arguing Jordan Peterson.
Because to me, so we have to. There's one question that we're asking in this discussion, right? Should it be legal or illegal under like a human rights law for people to misgender someone deliberately if they are employed by that person, if they live with that person, like they're renting, or something like that? So to me, like, yes, those things should not be legal. And I think
And that's
that
why you live in California and I live in Saskatchewan, because if that ever came
yeah,
up here, nobody would agree with you. Everybody would agree with me. This is the irony. We're in such different places you can't imagine. Now, Toronto, that being said, because Toronto is quite diverse. Toronto is actually now officially 51% immigration and not people from Canada. So this is a good example of the fact it's a very high LGBTQ community. It's a very large community for people of marginalized groups. So they do definitely have a bigger voice when it comes to activism in this type of area. So he is getting a lot of backlash there, but he's not getting a lot of backlash. He's getting pockets, there's always a pocket that tries to shut down his shows and all that. And I get that. People have a right to protest, right? That's part of free speech. I don't have an issue with that. But I guess my concern is that people seem really misinformed because they're so stuck on this one thing that they've determined that there's literally nothing the man can say that is of use. And they don't understand that what is compelling him to fight this is his concern for what our society is turning into. And you don't live in Canada, and we are concerned about this. And it's not just about trans, right? It actually has nothing to, I think it could have been anything. I think compelled speech is his issue. He's been pretty stout on that. I don't think he's a closet transphobe. I really don't. I don't see it at all.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't suspect so, but I think that it definitely helped him that he was, because there was a very large group of people who do not like trans rights, and they think it's crazy and they think it's wrong, and they were like, do. And it also helps that he's talking with some young students who are inarticulate, but I think correct, and he's talking very articulately, but he's not really correct. So people tend to gravitate towards the more charismatic person, at least from my
We'll agree to disagree again. I mean, we'll see, because our country right now is, I'm a little concerned. I'm concerned about free speech. I'm concerned about gun rights. I'm concerned about things that are turning us into what I see as the UK, and I'm nervous about that. Do I want to be the States? No, I don't. Do I want to be the UK? No, I don't. And we've gone too far left in our country, and that's part of that is because people are continuously posing like an activist, I guess, mentality towards things that the majority of people aren't having a problem with. And so he stood up because he felt like this was a line. As soon as it became compelled, that's what made him stand up. That was his only issue. I mean, I see what you're saying. I do. My argument is that even if you and I agree and we say, okay, this should be illegal, this shouldn't be allowed. And I mean, I think if someone's being misgendered at work or in a personal situation, I'm not sure in the workplace if there's ways to make official complaints in a workplace. I mean, that's a whole different privatized issue.
It's called C16. Like, that's the whole point. That's the point.
I'm not talking about I'm talking about speaking with your employer or your union or whatever. I don't mean legally. I mean speaking with your employer. You would sue
them. But if they don't stop, you have to have some endpoint where it's like you have to stop, or this is the legal recourse.
Fine. So we can do that. So let's do that. Let's say we put that through and we say, okay, it is through. I mean, it's through. It doesn't matter. So let's say we continue this and the conservative government doesn't come in, which, by the way, they're going to. Trudeau is pretty much bound to lose. So they're probably going to come in and they're probably going to recall this, but we'll see. It's hard to say. So if this does continue, let's say it's a good thing. Let's say it's positive and it improves the lives of trans people. I would say then, okay, you know what? This was worth it. This was worth a little bit of freedom, because I don't personally believe that I need the freedom to say something mean. I'm not that kind of a person. Now, my concern is, okay, what about the next issue that comes up? What's the next issue going to be where we say, okay, that should be illegal too? Well, you can't say something to this because, there has to be a line, because whoever's deciding what's offensive and what is hate speech, it's very subjective. So to call someone a horrible, dirty racial slur is very different than a lot of other things.
You agree that we shouldn't discriminate against people who are Black or Asian or white, right?
I don't believe we should discriminate against anything, but my belief is that discriminate is a very interesting word, because we now assume that if you don't automatically go along with everything, that you're discriminating or you're hateful, and that's not true.
But we don't care. I don't think that the law cares what people think. It cares what people say and what they do, their actions. If you deliberately misgender someone, that's an action that you're taking against them that can harm them.
So nothing ever. What about this whole sticks and stones can break my bones? Man, I've been called all kinds of stuff, and I don't I don't understand. Seriously, it's a pronoun. What is the big deal? I don't know. I would do it if someone asked me. I would do it. Now, does this need to be compelled speech, hate speech? I believe no, absolutely not. And I don't think I'm alone in that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You're not alone. But I don't think that makes it correct, to be totally honest.
I guess that's fair. That's fair.